You know of Lance Armstrong, but do you know of some of the more unknown riders who got caught doping in the most outrageous ways? First up is an Italian cyclist who's been caught not once, not twice, but 3 times for doping. Ricardo Rico was a naturally gifted climber from Italy, and after coming second in the Giro d'Italia 2008 general classification, he got the chance to ride his first Tour de France. He won stage 6 in a heads-up sprint against Alejandro Valverde and stage 9 solo by over a minute, both difficult mountain stages. However, after stage 11, Ricardo was informed that he had tested positive for SERA, a variant of EPO. He was immediately withdrawn from the Tour de France as his team boss had lost faith in him. His team Sonia Duval also left the tour the next day.
Fortunately, for the second day in a row, drugs are dominating the headlines here in France. Yesterday, it was a domestique for the Barlow World team. Today, it is one of this year's Tour de France superstars, Italian rider Ricardo Rico. Here is what we know at the moment. He has tested positive for SERA, which is a new form of EPO that happened after stage number 6. He has been expelled from this year's tour.
He denied the charges and said, "I'm very bitter. They searched my bags but only found some vitamins that we all use, and so they decided to let me go home." But a few days after the tour, Ricardo Rico admitted his extensive EPO usage prior to the Tour de France that year to the Italian doping agency. He was handed a 2-year suspension from professional cycling.
As angry as I am against Ricardo Rico, I am happy as Phil is on the side of the drug testing agencies, because Ricardo Rico and all the other riders who've been caught so far, I believe, have been targeted. All of the riders in the Tour de France at the start of the tour were tested, and a certain number of anomalies were noted, around about 10 riders. And since then, the doping tests, the random doping tests that have been carried out, have not been random. They've been looking at specific riders, testing them 2, 3, 4 times until they come up with the goods. I think it sends out a strong message. Don't cheat, because you will now get caught.
Many riders might stop doping after being caught, but Ricardo Rico was built differently. In 2010, after his suspension had expired, he returned to the sport. In 2010, he rode for 2 teams. First, a local Italian team, but later on he was signed by World Tour team Vacanze Soleil. His best result was winning the overall classification in the Tour of Austria. To many, it looked like Rico was back racing clean. However, in early 2011, Ricardo was rushed to the hospital following acute sepsis and kidney failure. His condition was critical. During his stay in the hospital, he admitted to the doctors that he'd done a blood transfusion, injecting 25-day-old blood back into his body. The doctor reported this information and it led to an investigation against him. He was released from the hospital 2 weeks later and subsequently fired by his team, only a couple of months after initially being signed. Ricardo denied the blood transfusion up until October of 2011, where he finally came clean, which made the Italian anti-doping agency have no choice but to ban him, this time for 12 years, ruining what was left of his career. You'd think the story ends here. However, post-career, he's changed from using to distributing. He's been linked to several criminal investigations and has been banned from cycling for life. Rico has also been vocal in the press. He shared his take on mechanical doping, something that's been rumoured to be rife in the current peloton. Can I add that I prefer chemical doping to motors? At least you have to have the courage to bet on yourself. With motors, it's another sport. I would never be able to use them. I'd feel like crap. If you're ever in Verona, you may want to stay clear of Ricardo Rico's ice cream truck. While Ricardo Rico eventually admitted to doping, this next professional cyclist came up with a hilarious excuse to why he didn't dope. Jonathan Tiernan was making waves in 2011. He had a breakthrough at the Tour of Britain, finishing 5th overall. It was an incredible result considering he was riding for Rafa Condor Sharp, a continental team. Many started to speculate if he could be the next British Grand Tour winner. He had a good start to the 2012 season, winning plenty of French stage races, continuing his good form, and he was back at the end of the year trying to win his first Tour of Britain. It started well as he was in the top 5 before stage 6.
Jonathan Tiernan, look at him in 3rd position here from Endura. He makes it look so easy, doesn't he? He just sits there tapping along, and then the slight easing of the legs as he gets out of the saddle. But this is his terrain, a former mountain bike rider from down in the Devon area. He looks back to see if there's anybody there. 30 kilometres to go. This is a perfect springboard for the final selection of the day.
There were 2 steep hills at the end of the stage, and with 12.8 kilometers to go, Tiernan Lok attacked the peloton, making them all look like amateurs. This was incredible, since he was only a continental rider at the time.
Tiernan Lok, he goes past Briggs. Now then, he's beginning to set himself up for the run, for the line, and then the final finishing loop. And the crowd, just look at this. This is just like the Tour de France.
He managed to ride with Leopold Koenig and finish second on the stage, taking the leader's jersey.
And the stage victory. They're into the finishing funnel now. That's exactly what we expected. So it's Koenig that's going to come up here to take the stage victory. He takes the stage victory. Second over the line is Jonathan Tiernan Lok.
In the end, he won the Tour of Britain by 18 seconds, which led to him get signed by Team Sky.
Sunk in yet? Not yet, no. Like I said, it was relief crossing the line, you know, that I didn't mess it up in the final few K. I didn't crash, puncture, or anything like that. And yeah, I think it was sinking tonight. But it's been a bit stressful the last few days, just making sure that, you know, we took time where we could and just not to throw it away. But yeah, it was sinking later.
Unfortunately for Tiernan, his successful career didn't last long. A year later, during the World Championship road race, he withdrew from the race due to a discrepancy in his biological passport. He was immediately suspended by Team Sky, and he lost his 2012 Tour of Britain title. Later, during the doping trials, Tiernan said his blood work was off due to him binge drinking alcohol with his girlfriend a few days prior to the 2013 Worlds, causing dehydration. However, that was rejected by the UK anti-doping agency, claiming it's inconceivable that a professional rider selected for the first time to ride for his country at a senior level in the World Championships would not have ensured that he was fit to race and had ensured that he'd taken on sufficient water to deal with any hangover which he was experiencing. JTL still remains adamant that he's innocent, despite his 2-year ban. He's even gone so far as to calling out Team Sky for throwing him under the bus in the wake of the recent headlines surrounding Shane Sutton and Freeman. Riders have been caught doping for decades, but nothing compares to the way riders used to cheat in the early days of cycling. Even legendary riders like Fausto Coppi admitted to taking drugs. He's won 5 Giro d'Italias and 2 Tour de France's, dominating for over a decade. But in a TV interview, he confessed to using La Bomba, which is amphetamines. He said that he needed it to be competitive. But nothing comes close to the ridiculous way a rider in the 1910s was able to win the Tour de France. Paul Dubuc was on his way to win the Tour when, during a stage in the Pyrenees, he suddenly became seriously ill and lost loads of time. It was suspected that his closest rival, Gustave Garrigou, forced his team manager to give him a bottle with poison in it. No charge was ever made, but Paul Dubuc came second due to this incident, while Gustave Garrigou won.